My therapist keeps telling me I should write everything down. Not because it'll magically fix anything, but because maybe finally I'll stop feeling like the only person who lived through it. So here it is, the part of my life I can barely say out loud. I used to think I was losing my mind. Now I think I was the only one seeing clearly. It started 3 years ago, when I accepted what I thought was my dream job, operations manager at a regional logistics company. It wasn't glamorous, but I loved the structure, the spreadsheets, the way small problems could be solved with simple logic. I liked people too, or at least I used to. And the building felt safe, predictable, like a little ecosystem where everyone knew their job and stuck to it. The first month was normal. The second month, there were signs, tiny things, things I brushed off. A mug I left on my desk moved 1 inch to the left. A stack of completed invoices had been flipped upside down. My sweater, which I was sure I'd left on the chair, hung neatly on the wall hook. I thought nothing of it. Maybe the cleaners. Maybe I was tired. I'd been pulling long hours. Then came the noises. Not loud ones, no footsteps, nothing dramatic. Just soft tapping behind the vent near my desk, like someone drumming fingernails on metal. Short rhythms, as if someone was thinking while they tapped. Pausing. Resuming. Again, I talked myself out of worrying. Old building, old pipes, metal expands. That's what everyone says. Until the night I stayed late. It was a Thursday. The office was empty by 7. I remember the silence. Not peaceful silence, but the kind that presses on your skin. I was packing up my laptop when I heard it. A whisper. Not a tap, not a creak, not a pipe. A whisper. My name. Lena. It floated from the hallway behind me. Clear enough that I froze mid-motion, cables still in my hand. I must have stood there for 20 seconds, too terrified to turn around. Finally, I forced myself to look. Nothing. Just the dark hallway. The exit sign glowing red. I didn't even question it. I simply grabbed my coat and walked out as calmly as I could, locking the door with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. That was the first moment I admitted to myself that something was wrong. The next week, I avoided staying late. I avoided being alone anywhere in the building. And the stranger thing? No one else mentioned anything. Not a whisper of a whisper. Not a joke about weird noises or a prank or a creepy story. I thought about telling HR, but what was I going to say? Hey, someone whispered my name when no one was here. They'd ask if I was stressed. They'd ask if I was sleeping. They'd smile politely. So I said nothing. Then, on a cold morning in January, I arrived to find a sticky note on my monitor. A yellow note, perfectly centered, with 2 words written in neat, careful handwriting. Found you. I nearly dropped my coffee. I looked around the office. People talking, typing, laughing, completely unaware. I asked everyone near me if they'd left it as a joke. Every single one of them looked genuinely confused. I shoved the note in my pocket and told myself it had to be some kind of stupid prank. But that afternoon, when I pulled the note back out, the handwriting had changed. Same words. Different hand. As if someone had rewritten it while it was in my pocket. That night I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, replaying every second in the building, every sound I'd ever heard near that vent. By February, I was avoiding work more than I was attending it. I felt sick every morning. My chest tightened before I even reached the parking lot. I thought about quitting, but I needed the job. My mother's medical bills were stacking up, and I was the only one left to handle them. So I kept going, kept pretending, kept praying I was imagining everything. Then came the incident in the stairwell. I was walking down from the 3rd floor when motion sensor lights flickered on ahead of me. Except, they don't flicker on unless someone walks under them. And I was still 5 steps away. I stopped. The light stayed on. Then the light behind me switched on too. But no one was there. The stairwell was silent. A cold breeze brushed my neck. And somewhere between the 2nd and 3rd steps below, something exhaled. I ran. I didn't care if I slipped and broke my leg. I ran until I burst through the first floor door into the lobby and nearly collided with my coworker, Andrew. He stared at me, breathless and pale, and asked if I was okay. I lied, of course. I always lied. But Andrew was the first person who noticed something was happening to me. Over the next few weeks, he kept checking on me. Quietly, without pushing. I wasn't used to kindness without expectation. It unnerved me more than the noises did. One morning, he handed me a USB drive. "I'm not trying to scare you," he said, "but you need to see something." I watched it that evening on my home computer. It was footage from the office security cameras. At first, it looked boring. People walking in, walking out. Then the timestamp jumped. 3 days earlier, 10:14 p.m. The camera angle showed my office door. Closed. Dark. At 10:16, the door handle slowly turned. Not all the way. Just enough to click. Then it released. 2 minutes later, it turned again. Another click. Then again. Longer this time. Finally, at 10:20, the door gently pushed open, just 2 inches, and from the darkness inside, a hand reached out. Thin. Wrong-shaped. The fingers too long. It held something. A yellow sticky note. The camera glitched right after. When the feed returned, the door was shut, and no one was in the frame. That night, I cried harder than I've cried in years. Not because of the hand, but because something, had been in my office while I was home sleeping. The next day, I confronted Andrew at his desk. He told me he'd heard noises, too. He'd seen shadows in rooms he'd just walked out of. But the worst part? He finally admitted he'd found notes, too. Not many. Just one every few weeks. Always blank, but always placed exactly where he would see them first. Together, we went to HR. Together, we were dismissed. They said we were stressed, overworked, encouraged us to take breaks. They even suggested we might be influencing each other with paranoid thoughts. So we stopped trying. We started covering for each other instead. Neither of us ever stayed alone. If he was late, I waited in the parking lot. If I had to file something in storage, he came with me. It made everything bearable. Until he stopped showing up. One Tuesday, he just didn't come to work. His phone went straight to voicemail. No text, no message. HR told us he'd resigned, effective immediately. They said he'd emailed them overnight. They couldn't show the email. They couldn't explain why his desk was cleared out instantly. I drove to his apartment after work. His car was in the lot. Lights off. Curtains shut. I knocked. No answer. I called his name. No movement. I even tried the door. Locked. And yet, in the corner of his windowsill was a single sticky note. Yellow. Stuck crookedly in the glass. With 3 words. "You stopped running." I don't remember getting back to my car. I don't remember driving home. I just remember sitting on my living room floor until sunrise, holding that note like it was radioactive. Everything after that became fragmented. I couldn't sleep more than an hour without jolting awake. I barely ate. I called my mother every night pretending I was fine. At work, people whispered about me. That I looked tired. That I should take time off. That maybe the job was too much for me. No one mentioned Andrew. Not once. As if he'd never existed. And the building? The building changed. The vents hummed constantly, like someone whispering just beyond hearing. Lights turned on in rooms I knew were locked. My laptop would freeze, glitch, delete files I never touched. And every week, without fail, a new sticky note would appear. On my chair, under my mouse, inside my coat pocket. Always with the same 2 words as the first. Found you. 6 months in, I broke. I collapsed in the warehouse aisle one afternoon and couldn't stand back up. A coworker found me and called an ambulance. At the hospital, they said it was exhaustion, dehydration, anxiety. They recommended medical leave. HR agreed instantly, too instantly, and told me to Take all the time you need. I never went back. I quit from home, packed my things, moved in with my sister. Every day I told myself I'd imagined it, that it was stress, that maybe Andrew had really quit and moved away, that maybe I was the problem. For a year, I clung to that idea. I rebuilt my life piece by fragile piece, until last month. My sister found something in my coat pocket, the coat I hadn't worn since the day I left the building. A yellow sticky note, perfectly centered, with 2 new words, "See you." I threw the coat away, burned it in the backyard fire pit. My sister told me it was probably an old note I'd forgotten, but I know. It wasn't old. The handwriting was fresh. The ink hadn't faded. Someone, something, placed that note in my pocket long after I'd left the job. Long after I'd moved states. Long after I'd tried to forget. So this is why I'm writing this. Because I don't know what else to do. Because I need someone, anyone to understand. I don't know what followed us in that building. I don't know what happened to Andrew. I don't know how it found me again after all this time. But I know this. When something learns your name, it doesn't let go. And every night when the house is quiet, sometimes I swear I hear it through the vents. That slow, rhythmic tapping. Thinking, waiting, searching. For me.